Welcome everyone to the Larsonland podcast. I'm your host, Sawyer Hill, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Dylan Bradshaw. We come on here every single week and talk about all things involving the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, Young Money Kyle Larson. It was a wild race to say the least Sunday for Kyle Larson at the Homestead-Miami Speedway. We'll talk about that a little bit on today's show, as well as the High Limit Sprint Car Series acquiring the Tezos All-Star Circuit of Champions from Tony Stewart. Dylan, let's dive right into Homestead. It was a sandy day for Kyle Larson out in Miami.
Yeah, definitely disappointing. We were heading the race. We saw his domination last year at Homestead was, kind of expecting the same kind of deal. Coming off a win at Vegas and just kind of rolling through this round. But it looked like that early. I mean, he picked up the stage one win. He was pretty quick. A few seconds ahead of second place there. Looked like he was en route to win stage two as well, but last 10 laps or so of that stage, car just started falling off really bad. Probably had to do with the tires. I know he was racing Suarez pretty hard there at the end of that stage, so could have been really bad tire fall off, I would assume. But ended up getting stage two third, and then obviously we saw the sand barrier incident with on pit road behind Blaney. And I think there was around 54 to go. Yeah, pretty crazy. Larson seems to always put himself in some unusual situations. He was kind of entering pit road behind Blaney, trying to gain some ground, and pretty much just center, trying to get some position. And Blaney, I mean, not blaming Blaney here, obviously, but he did kind of brake check a little bit. I think he was like six miles per hour or so, like under the pit road speed limit. So I think that's why Larson kind of reacted the way he did and kind of went into the barriers. So he didn't take out Blaney because that'd have been a bad situation taking out a playoff driver that's leading the race. So I think that's what happened there. And he did graze his right rear a little bit, but obviously Blaney he ended up getting a pretty good day. He's fourth in points above the cut line, so he ended up being all right. But yeah, Larson, sandy day, broke the tire rod, parked the car, P34 finish, not ideal.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting, like listening to, because there has been a lot of debate, I think, on social media as to whether it was, Larson's fault or whether it was Blaney's fault. I feel like most people are kind of just saying, Kyle misjudged a little bit and it was his fault. But I think it would be interesting to see, like, as Kyle said in his post or in his like interview after the incident. I guess after he got out of the infield care center, he said he'd have to go back and look at the data and kind of see where he was speed wise in relation to pit road speed and Blaney's data. And that's obviously something that we really aren't going to be able to ever see. I kind of feel like I'm relating this a little bit to the race at the Indy Road Course from last year, where Kyle had like the alleged brake failure, but no brake failure, and we nobody had access to any of the data, so nobody could really see for sure. And this is another one of those cases where it's like, it's hard to tell when you have two cars moving at different rates of speed if Blaney was way below pit road speed and Larson was coming in there hot, or if Larson was just doing what he would normally do coming into pit road there and Blaney was just in the way. So it's hard to tell, but nonetheless, I think the way Larson handled it on track in that split second decision was probably the best way to go about it. Like you said, Blaney being another playoff driver, you didn't want to just plow into the back of him and ruin his day. And unfortunately, it ended Larson's day in a 34th place finish with probably one of the fastest cars in the field. But like you said, Las Vegas, the win last week, locked him into the Final Four at home at Phoenix. So still good there, but you want to have a little bit of good momentum going into Phoenix, and this definitely doesn't help that cause at all.
Yeah, he was definitely fast. I mean, he led 96 laps. I think, Larson, Bell, and Blaney, I think they were the clear, obvious fastest cars of the day. Bell obviously picked up the win, but yeah, just terrible situation. Being already locked into Phoenix, he kind of, I guess, is chasing trophies in these two rounds. So I get kind of his aggressive point of view, which I do think he said in his interview that he didn't really expect him, as we've been talking about, you didn't really expect him to like slow down that much, which I did see a screenshot from NBC there. I think Blaney was about, I don't know, foot or so from the line, and Larson was like 20 miles per hour quicker than him. But I know he did say he was kind of attempting that because that definitely could have been the matter of the win of the race. I mean, it was the last pit stop. Yeah, I think he was about 6-10 seconds behind him entering pit road. So I don't know if they could have put together that fast of a pit stop to get in front of him, but I think that was just kind of his chance there, and was just kind of sending it, and maybe it just looks like he was sending it extra hard because Blaney was much slower than
Yeah.
on speed limit. Maybe it just looks worse than it was, but yeah, just sucks. Wish we could have kind of flew through this round. I mean, three tracks that Larson's very good at. Vegas obviously picked up the win and dominated last year, and then he's the defending winner of Martinsville from the spring race earlier going into Martinsville. So was really expecting domination this round, but hopefully it just doesn't mess with the team, mess with the mojo going to Phoenix. Obviously, completely different style of racing compared to Homestead, but I know a lot of people asked him, a lot of interviewers asking, if he's focused on Phoenix, and it just seems like the five teams just focus at the task at hand, the races that they have coming up. So yeah, I mean, hopefully it just doesn't affect him too much. Hopefully we get a good finish next week, and it's definitely interesting way the playoffs wound up. I mean, Hamlin, he was above the cut line, and then he had trouble. So Hamlin needs a win to get in. Buescher needs a win. Truex needs a win. There's a lot of guys that need to win to get in. So maybe it'll be a crazy race. Maybe not as crazy as last year's fall race with the Hail Melon. I don't know. Maybe the fall Martinsville race will be marked as the crazy race with a crazy move. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting what you said about like Kyle and the five teams focus on Homestead. Like when he was asked about that over the weekend, kind of saying that he wasn't thinking about Phoenix at all. It was all focused on Homestead, and I think this week maybe that starts to change a little bit. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that the focus shifts to Phoenix now, even with Martinsville on the horizon, or is it still locked in on Martinsville? Because I do think, I mean, I guess there's only so much they can really do to prepare for Phoenix from a you know car standpoint, but from a strategy and mindset standpoint, do you think that the team shifts to Phoenix a little bit early, or do you think that they hold off until after Martinsville?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of like in the back of their mind. Obviously, their job is to, focus on the race at hand, like I said. But I don't know. I think they're kind of game planning for it because he was locked in the first race. He was very good there in the spring. I mean, he led over 200 laps. It might have been 211 laps, I think it was. I think we covered that last week. But he was very fast in the spring race. So they're always pretty good at Phoenix. So I'm sure they're game planning for it. But obviously, still trying to get that win. Points really don't matter, obviously, because he's locked in. So I don't know. I'm sure they're game planning for it because that's the main goal of the season. So yeah, we'll see. Just hopefully we get a good finish and keep the momentum going. I mean, I know I saw one picture. Cliff Daniels actually called a five-team meeting after the Homestead race. Called every five-team member to the hauler, and it looked like they just kind of had group meeting, group pep talk. So I don't know. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. I'm sure they're definitely game planning for it though.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like, I mean, I didn't hear the radio conversations, but it sounded like from what I saw on Twitter, it got pretty animated at times between Cliff and Kyle, there at the end of stage two, and I think that the focus really should have been. I mean, I don't know what was said in that team meeting, but kind of making sure everybody was on the same page and bringing everybody together and making sure that there's no hard feelings or any bad blood going into these last two races, because this team needs to be stuck like glue going into Phoenix, and they've been so good all year, and it's just been these little mistakes that have costed Larson wins, just like at Homestead this week. We've seen it so many times this year where he's had the fastest car like that and just could not quite execute an entire race to ultimately come home with the checkered flag. But I mean, I think that if as long as this team sticks together, I think that they'll be fast at Martinsville and they'll be fast at Phoenix, and they have a good chance of winning the championship. Obviously, Bell is that second driver to clinch his championship for playoff berth, and two more spots up for grabs this weekend at Martinsville. Byron, if you're watching this on YouTube, we have the point standings pulled up on the screen. Byron currently sits 30 points above the cut line. I think he's pretty safe unless something crazy happens, I would say. But I think from there, Blaney and Reddick, Blaney's +10, Reddick's -10. I think that those guys could either get in or out based on position. But at 17 for Truex and Hamlin, I think it's almost a must-win situation for those guys. What do you think, Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Hamlin. He's pretty good at Martinsville. Byron's good at Martinsville. Larson's good. Bell won the race last year, right? Didn't he win when Larson finished second with the Hail Mary?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was gonna say. I mean, this win from Bell this week was really clutch. I mean, 2 years in a row getting a win to lock in, and could be the only Joe Gibbs Racing driver to be in the Final Four for the second year in a row, which is kind of crazy considering the years that Hamlin and Truex have both had.
yeah. I saw something today. It said that ever since the chase format was introduced, Gibbs has had at least one driver in every single year. So most of those years was Kyle Busch. A handful of years with Hamlin. I don't know. Will we finally see Hamlin go for a run at the championship? I know that's been the big talks in NASCAR. Has a Hall of Fame resume, but he just can't quite get that championship. Do you think he'll get it before he retires?
Man, I honestly I don't think Hamlin gets a championship before he retires. I think he's like the second Mark Martin. He's gonna. I mean, Hamlin has had a great career. He's won a ton of races, and it's just he's one of those guys that it seems like he just, especially with this playoff format, it's very hard to capitalize and put together a full playoffs. I mean, we've seen it last year with Larson getting eliminated at the Roval. Like, it just something crazy can always happen and knock you out of the race or out of the playoffs, I should say. And whether it's your mistake or whether it's not. In the case of like Truex, you never know what's going to happen, and it's hard to win these championships now, harder than really ever. I mean, even if you win a ton of races during the regular season, it doesn't guarantee anything. Those bonus points are good for the first couple rounds, but once you get into the round of 8, I think that is pretty much off the table. Like, you almost need to win one of these races to get to the final round, and Hamlin's in a tough position right now. So I guess from the Larson side of things, I'm glad Hamlin and Truex are both below the cut line because I think that they would be two guys that would be good at Phoenix. But I don't want to discount anybody. I think anybody could win any race any Sunday. I mean, we see that. Obviously, Allmendinger picking up a win, and Bell. This is only his second win of the year, right? So, anybody's tough competition. So it's going to be interesting going into Phoenix.
Yeah, and Bell, I mean, I can't believe he doesn't have more wins. I mean,
Yeah,
he finished second handful of times. I mean, how many poles in a row did he win? Like 4 or 5 poles in a row. Beat like a NASCAR playoff record for poles. So just a really good driver. Surprised he doesn't have more wins this year, but he's definitely gonna be tough competition at Phoenix. Byron, obviously, he's been red hot this year. He's always, fighting for a win. Seems like every single race almost. I mean, he's at the end. It seems like he's like first or second. So he's always battling up there. And who knows? I mean, we could see a non-playoff driver win Phoenix. I mean, anything can happen, and it could end up being a points day, which I think that would kind of suck. Being a playoff driver in the Final Four. You kind of want to win the race to win the championship. I feel like that'd be kind of kind of weird to win it. Finishing, I don't know, finishing like ninth place and everyone
yeah.
else was behind you. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's definitely a stout field, and those guys under the cut line. I mean, they're definitely have a viable chance to win at Martinsville. I think Hamlin's gonna kind of be a headache next Sunday, but I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if Hamlin can advance.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting there to see. I think my prediction is that, or I guess for me, I think I'll say Byron and Blaney both advance, and I think that everybody below the cut line stays below the cut line. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's Martinsville. I mean, there's really not too many situations, where even if you get in a wreck, I mean, there's at such low speeds. I mean, there's a chance you can come back in if it happens early and bounce back. But I don't know. I mean, I, I I mean, I would have to agree with you. I mean, I think Byron and Blaney that they'll keep it under control. I don't know. Does Reddick does Reddick race well at Martinsville? I can't remember. Has he had any
I'm
good finishes there?
I'm not sure how Reddick is at Martinsville, but I know like honestly, like the best tracks of the year for the 2311 guys have been the mile and a half. So I think Reddick's chance really was the past 2 weeks at Homestead and at Las Vegas. So to see him -10, I mean, it's doable, I think, for him, but it's going to take Blaney having a little bit of trouble. And I think another good point is for Blaney and Reddick, qualifying is going to make a big difference for this race on Sunday at Martinsville because you know how quick it is for the field to get into lap traffic, and if you get caught a lap down, it could be a long day for some of these guys that are vying for a spot in the championship for.
Yeah, I pulled up Riddick's stats real quick out of curiosity. So not too hot at Martinsville. I mean, he qualified pretty well in the spring race this year. He qualified sixth, but I mean, just going to his finishes, backwards. 22nd place finish, 35th, 18th, 18th. His best finish was at eighth in 2021, and that's his only top 10 and seven starts. So no laps led, one DNF. So that definitely not ideal for Riddick, but I mean who knows? We might fall into a situation where he clutches up. I mean, kind of like Truex at Bristol in the round of 16. I mean, he didn't qualify there. What in like the top 10 since early 2000s or something, I think it was, and he ended up advancing. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, Blaney, I think he's like really good at Martinsville, isn't he? I think he has like a ton of top tens there.
Not sure how good Blaney is there
Let
either.
me pull
Honestly,
him up.
you're the stats guy. You're pulling up all the
Yeah.
stats on the fly, figuring
Okay.
it out here.
Yeah, shout
Um,
shout out to Racing Reference. They're very clutch. Yeah, Blaney. I mean, spring race. He started 31st and finished seventh. Just going through his finishes: seventh, third, fourth, 11th, second, fifth, fourth, 20th,
Solid.
third. So yeah, very solid. Nine top tens,
Yeah.
15 starts, seven top fives, 377 laps led. So yeah, definitely very solid. That's going to be tough for Reddick to beat him on points. Obviously if he qualifies well, it's going to be very tough for Reddick, and obviously unless he wins. But yeah, I mean we'll see. It's the playoffs. It's the chase. Anything crazy can happen. We saw it. Like I keep mentioning last year with the Hail Melon, Ross Chastain crazy move to knock Hamlin out. So anything can happen. I mean it's playoffs, and you just never know.
Yep. Martinsville is going to be a very exciting one this Sunday. Practicing qualifying, of course, on Saturday for that event. Kyle Larson already locked into the championship for. Uh, Going to be interesting to see who the final two guys that are going to be battling for that championship at Phoenix. But in other news, Dylan, we had some big breaking news this afternoon coming out on around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Actually, the High Limit Sprint Car Series, Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet in the High Limit Sprint Car Series acquiring the Tezos All Star Circuit of Champions. This is some big news, Dylan. Really big in the sprint car world. I think that a lot of people, this had been rumored for a couple of weeks now, a couple of months really. A lot of people talking about the two series merging together, and now it's finally official. And Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet now the owners of the All Star Circuit of Champions. So, what was your initial reaction to the news? I knew I wasn't super surprised. I kind of heard rumblings about it over the past couple weeks, but cool to see the deal get done.
Yeah, I mean it's a great series, and we've talked about High Limit this year. I mean it was very successful for its inaugural season. Went very well. Midweek payout. It was just really good races, really good tracks. So I'm kind of interested to see the future with it. I mean maybe they merge some races, merge schedules with High Limit. I don't know. I know All Star they run about 50 races a year. I think it is on average. So I don't know. We were kind of talking about High Limit. Whether or not they might branch out and make a big schedule. Maybe this could be the move that makes that happen. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, if it were my guess, I think they might merge some nights with All Star and kind of do that. But maybe some people were talking about, the name, maybe rename it to the High Limit All Stars. I don't know if they do that. Tezos High Limit All Stars presented by Flow Racing. I don't know if that's something they'll do, but yeah, really cool stuff. It's really big for sprint car racing, and Kyle and Brad are really doing big things to grow sprint car racing and just grow the audience in general.
Yeah, and like you said, there's still a lot of questions about this whole deal because the press release or the article that came out on Flow Racing this afternoon, kind of announcing this deal, was very, I would say, undetailed. There wasn't a lot of specifics as to how the series is going to operate, if the high limit sprint car series and the all stars are going to merge into one big series, or if they're still going to stay separate, with high limit being a midweek thing and all stars just kind of being its usual thing under the ownership of Kyle and Brad. Something I was kind of brainstorming before we got on the podcast was, I know in like IMSA, if anybody watches IMSA racing, they have like the endurance races, which are like the 12 hours of Sebring, the 24 hours of Daytona, Petit Le Mans. Those races are still points races for their season long points, for the different categories of cars, but there's a separate points championship just for the endurance races. So I was thinking maybe the high limit races would be midweek events that are part of the all-star schedule that count for all-star points, but there's a separate points championship just for the high limit races. That was kind of my only thing I could think of, with the two being separate but still intertwined. But maybe, like we said, maybe we'll see like the high limit all-star circuit of champions or something like that. I think that name would be a little funny, but we'll see what happens. Still a lot of questions. We'd like to get some answers. Maybe we'll see more. I know it said that the 2024 schedule and all that stuff is still forthcoming, and maybe we'll get some news on that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, that actually would be really cool. The thing talked about with the endurance with him, so that actually is a really good idea. Maybe they need to go forward with that. But I don't know. I also wonder if they're going to keep the normal All Star points format. I know that's one thing with All Stars is it's very different from the different series like High Limit and World of Outlaws. So I wonder if that's something. Maybe if they do kind of merge it like you just said. If I wonder if High Limit would kind of start running that All Stars format. I don't know. There's just a lot of questions, a lot of different variables that could happen with it. But as you said, there wasn't too many details, so it's just kind of all speculation. So if anyone listening on YouTube, has any ideas of what could happen, or any guesses, leave it in the comments. Definitely be cool to see everyone's input with what they think the series will come to. But yeah, it's definitely very cool. The Kyle and Brad, they'll become the fifth owners of the series since 1970. So very cool stuff. They're doing huge things, and I guess World of Outlaws is going to have to look out. I mean, it's that second year in the game with the series, and they're making some big moves. So yeah, World of Outlaws is going to have to look out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which drivers compete full time with the All Stars slash High Limit deal, and which guys stick with the Outlaws, because things are getting really interesting in the sprint car world. I think this year was interesting with High Limit coming into the scene, and a lot of midweek money. Obviously, we had the Eldora Million, a lot of big money on the table in sprint car racing this year. But next year is going to be even more exciting, I think, with this news that came out today. So. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to these last two races of the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Um, right now, still, we talked about it last week, talked about it the week before. Only dirt races on the schedule right now for Kyle Larson are at the Placerville Speedway for the Hangtown 100. After the NASCAR season ends, I'm sure there'll be more events added to his schedule closing out the year on dirt, but unless you had anything else to talk about, Dylan, I think that should pretty much wrap up today's show.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we kind of went in here just, only expecting to talk about NASCAR. Thankfully, we got a little bit of dirt news, no dirt race to cover, but got some dirt news with High Limit All Stars tonight. So, yeah, got to talk about that, and hopefully Martinsville goes well. But, ultimately the Phoenix race, that's the main goal here. Got to get two championships under his belt, and, keep the run going, keep the domination going, and yeah, I mean, we'll see. But yeah, thanks everyone for the support as always. Really appreciate it. All the likes, comments, and support on social media. Much appreciated, and just keep it up. And like I said, if you have any input on the high limit stuff, definitely comment below. It'd be interesting to see, and even commented on the social media post, the breaking news. So yeah, see y'all next week.
Yep, like Dylan said, thanks again everyone for tuning in and listening to today's show. We'll be back again next week to recap the NASCAR Cup Series round of 8 finale from the Martinsville Speedway and look ahead to the championship 4 at Phoenix. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please follow our podcast so you do not miss a thing. Hope you have a great rest of the week, everyone, and we will see you in the next episode.